The sky had shifted into a dark, uneasy grey, and the wind carried a quiet signal that something was about to go terribly wrong. In a distant stretch of untamed land where rivers cut through dense terrain and predators ruled with silent power, a storm unlike anything before began to rise. The rain didn't fall softly. It poured down in heavy sheets, turning dry soil into rushing streams within minutes. And somewhere in the middle of this chaos, a lioness, powerful, fearless, and born to rule, was fighting a battle she was never meant to face. Her name was Nala. Moments earlier, Nala had been moving carefully along the edge of a riverbank, her golden coat blending seamlessly with the muddy ground. She was hunting, focused, calculating every step. But nature had different plans. The river, once calm, had started to rise quickly. What began as a distant rumble soon turned into a roaring force. Before she could react, the ground beneath her paws collapsed, and she slipped into the rushing current. The water showed no mercy. It pulled her strong body downstream, crashing her against hidden debris, dragging her under again and again. Each time she surfaced, her breaths became shorter, weaker. This was not a test of strength. It was a race against time. And even a lioness, the queen of her land, was no match for a flood determined to take everything in its power. Not far from this unfolding disaster, a golden retriever named Max had been wandering near a small settlement on the edge of the wild. Max wasn't a hunter. He wasn't built for survival in the wilderness. He was a companion, known for his gentle nature, his loyalty, and an instinct that went far beyond what anyone could explain. As the storm grew stronger, Max became uneasy. His ears lifted, his body stiff. Something felt wrong. Then he heard it. A faint, desperate sound carried through the wind. A cry that didn't belong to the storm. It was raw, strained, and filled with fear. Max didn't hesitate. Without knowing what he was running toward, he sprinted in the direction of the sound, his paws splashing through mud and rising water. What he saw when he reached the river's edge would have made most creatures turn away. Nala was barely holding on. Her massive body was being dragged by the current, her head slipping under the water. More often now, her strength was fading fast. To any observer, this was the end. But Max didn't see a predator. He didn't see danger. He saw something else. Something in need. And without a second thought, Max did the unimaginable. He jumped. The icy water hit him like a shock, the current instantly trying to pull him under. But Max fought through it, his legs paddling with everything he had. He aimed straight for Nala, who by now was barely conscious. Each stroke brought him closer, each second pushing him to his limit. Reaching her wasn't the hardest part. Getting her out was. Max moved around her, searching for something, anything he could grip. Finally, he found it. The loose fur around her neck. It wasn't much, but it was enough. With his jaws locked tight, Max began to pull. The current pushed back. It fought with a force that seemed impossible to overcome. But Max didn't let go. Inch by inch, he dragged her toward the muddy bank. His body strained, his breathing heavy, but something inside him refused to give up. And then, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the edge. Max pushed with his last bit of strength, managing to pull Nala onto solid ground. Both of them collapsed, exhausted, soaked, and barely able to move. The storm continued to rage around them, but for a brief moment, time seemed to pause. Nala was alive. Minutes passed before she began to stir. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, her eyes slowly opening, and when she looked up, the first thing she saw was Max, sitting beside her, watching, waiting, as if making sure she was safe. This was the moment where instinct should have taken over. A lioness, even in a weakened state, does not share space with another animal, especially not one as vulnerable as a dog. But something was different. Nala didn't growl. She didn't bare her teeth. Instead, she simply watched him. There was confusion in her eyes, but there was also something else. Recognition. Over the next few hours, the storm began to weaken. The waters slowly pulled back, leaving behind a scarred landscape. But on that muddy bank, an impossible bond had just been formed. Max didn't leave. He stayed by Nala's side as she recovered, bringing her small pieces of food he scavenged, standing guard whenever unfamiliar sounds echoed through the area. And Nala, she allowed it. Not once did she show aggression. Not once did she treat him as prey. Days turned into weeks. Nala regained her strength, her movements becoming more confident, her presence once again commanding. She could have left at any time, returned to their wild where she belonged, but she didn't, because Max was still there. What started as a rescue had become something far deeper. Max followed her, not as a pet, not as a subordinate, but as a companion. And Noller, the lioness who once ruled alone, now moved with him by her side. Their bond confused everyone who witnessed it. Locals who occasionally passed through the area began to notice the pair, a golden retriever walking beside a lioness, as if they had known each other their entire lives. At first, people kept their distance, unsure of what they were seeing. But over time, it became clear. This was no coincidence. This was loyalty. Max became more than just a friend. He became her protector. Whenever other predators came too close, Max would place himself between them and Noller, barking fiercely despite the obvious danger. And Noller, she responded. She protected him in return, making sure no harm came to the one who had saved her life. It was a partnership built on something beyond instinct, something beyond survival. Seasons changed. The land healed, and their memory of the flood slowly faded. But the bond between Max and Noller only grew stronger. They hunted together, not in the usual way, but in a way that worked for them. Noller provided the strength, the skill. Max provided awareness, alerting her to danger long before it arrived. They had become a team, a family, and perhaps the most remarkable part of their story wasn't the rescue itself, but what came after. Because in a world where survival often means isolation, where strength is measured by dominance, these two had rewritten the rules. They had chosen connection. They had chosen trust. And in doing so, they had created something the wild had never seen before. Even years later, their story continued to spread, inspiring those who heard it. A reminder that sometimes the strongest bonds are formed in the most unexpected moments. That courage doesn't always come from the most powerful creature, but from the one willing to act when it matters most. And as the sun set over the same river that had once threatened to take everything away, Max and Noller could often be seen resting side by side, a quiet symbol of what can happen when compassion rises above fear. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible real-life inspired animal stories that remind us just how powerful loyalty, courage, and unexpected friendships can truly be.